Macroalgae play a crucial role in regulating atmospheric carbon dioxide through carbon fixation and sequestration. In Antarctica, however, there has been limited research, and it is believed that there is not much suitable habitat for most macroalgae due to low light intensity and phytoplankton abundance. Despite this, some have been found up to 125 meters deep. There are many species of macroalgae that inhabit the Antarctic waters, and they are specifically adapted to live there. These macroalgae play a huge role in carbon fixation and sequestration. This is very important as they trap the greenhouse gases that warm the atmosphere and ocean, which leads to glacial retreat and increased meltwater.
Oh no.
Ah, shucks.
Carbon fixation is the process of algae taking carbon out of the atmosphere and converting it into organic compounds during photosynthesis. Carbon sequestration is a helpful process for decreasing atmospheric carbon dioxide as it traps CO2 within the seafloor sediments by falling algae and detritus. This is great for long-term storing of carbon. Algae has been recorded falling up to 2,000 meters to the seafloor, showing that Antarctica macroalgae carries out very long-term carbon sequestration.
Antarctic algae are physiologically adapted to the low irradiance and high rates of dislodgements. This means they can be resilient through storms when the turbulence is high and the light is low. Specific photosynthetic parameters were used to predict the macroalgae's max physiological depths. Palmaria decipiens were predicted to have a physiological max depth of 70 meters. Hemantothelys grandifolius was predicted down to 70 meters, while for Crustois coralline algae, it was as deep as 125 meters. Both Hemantothelys grandifolius and Crustois coralline algae were observed at similar depths to their predicted physiological max depths, while Palmaria decipiens were found at much deeper depths of 100 meters. The densities observed of these three macroalgae was used to extrapolate the total abundance across the Antarctic continent. The previous photosynthetic parameters were used to estimate the amount of annual carbon fixation done by the three macroalgae. Hemantothelys grandifolius fixes 14 teragrams of carbon a year, or 14 million metric tons of carbon a year. That's around 140,000 adult blue whales. This is around 1.1% of the global carbon fixed by macroalgae. Palmaria decipien fixes 15 teragrams of carbon at 1.2% of the global carbon. Finally, Crustois coralline algae fixes 7.9 teragrams of carbon at 0.6% of global carbon production. In total, Antarctic macroalgae fix 37 teragrams of carbon every year at 2.8% of the global fixation. This is around 370,000 blue whales, which if laid out fin to head, would stretch across the entire width of Africa.
The Antarctic macroalgae provide unique three-dimensional habitats as well as taking in a large amount of dissolved CO2. The study shows how much more important these communities are than we previously thought. The findings can help establish bigger and better marine protection zones to help the macroalgae habitats flourish, which will in turn help us in our fight against climate change.